Stephen A. Smith just said something that has the entire black community heated. One of the most recognizable sports voices in America. A man who built his whole career talking to black people for black people about the things black people care about most, just said that a 4,000-seat UFC event at the White House where Michelle Obama got disrespected was better than the New York Knicks winning the NBA championship. And the internet absolutely lost its mind. But nobody went harder on Stephen A. than Godfrey. And what Godfrey said cuts way deeper than just a sports take. Because this isn't really about UFC versus basketball. This is about something much bigger. This is about what happens when people use the culture to get to the top and then forget where they came from the second they get in those rooms. Strap in, because this one gets real. Let's make sure everybody is clear on exactly what went down here. Stephen A. Smith and Jay Williams went to the UFC event at the White House, Trump's event, a 4,000-seat venue set up outside the White House for an MMA night. And when they came back, Stephen A. said on camera, out loud, with full confidence, that this UFC event was better than the NBA Finals. Not just better than one game, better than the entire Knicks championship run.
You guys tell me if I'm wrong or not. Stephen A. Smith and Jay Williams were discussing the Knicks NBA championship games and the White House fiasco. And they said out of their mouths that
I was there, 4,000-seat arena. I gotta be honest, coming off the NBA Finals, where I was at multiple NBA Finals, better event than NBA Finals.
the White House MMA event was better than the Knicks finals against the Spurs championship. The f*** are you both smoking? What contract have you both signed?
Now let's think about what the Knicks just did. New York hadn't won a championship in decades. The city was going absolutely crazy. Game after game of comebacks, heart attacks, buzzer beaters, pure emotion. Madison Square Garden, one of the most electric arenas on the entire planet, packed wall to wall with New York energy that you cannot replicate anywhere else on earth. And Stephen A. Smith, a man from New York City, sat there and said a 4,000-seat White House event was better than all of that.
Were we watching the same thing? Because I watched both of them. I wanted to watch the White House thing because I was like, what in the f is going on? We are wasting tax dollars on this bullshit. You know, and I watched the NBA Finals, which kept me on the edge of my seat.
Godfrey watched both. He was paying attention. And he couldn't believe what he was hearing from Stephen A. Because this wasn't just a bad take. This was a take that made zero sense coming from someone with Stephen A.'s background, his platform, and his history of claiming to speak for the culture. Here's what makes Stephen A.'s take even more wild. This wasn't just a regular UFC event. This was an event where Michelle Obama got openly disrespected. On the stage, in front of everybody. And Stephen A. Smith sat in that crowd, watched it happen, and then came back and said it was the better event.
And you're saying that the MMA where they disrespected Michelle Obama, by the way, disrespected her, which was so horrible and horrific that this half Mexican dude had the nerve to open his mouth about the Obamas. And you're saying that that was better than the Knicks winning a championship and you, Stephen A. Smith, being from New York City.
Let that sink in for a second. Michelle Obama, first black first lady in American history, a woman who has represented black excellence on a global stage for years, got disrespected at this event. And the response from Stephen A. Smith was essentially, great event, loved it, better than the NBA Finals. Godfrey couldn't let that slide. Because there's a difference between having a different opinion on sports and co-signing an environment where your own people are being openly disrespected for entertainment. And then there's the Trump factor. Godfrey pointed out something that nobody can ignore. The one game Trump showed up to during the Knicks run, the Knicks lost that game.
The comebacks that the Knicks like performed, I mean, just the crazy shit that was going on. And then Trump himself up the one game when he shows up, the Knicks lose. But then everything else was just perseverance and just God dog fight to the end.
The universe was speaking, and Stephen A. missed the message completely. Now let's get into Godfrey's actual response, because Godfrey didn't hold back for even 1 second. The moment Ed Lover played the clip of Stephen A's take, Godfrey had one thing to say immediately.
And you remember when your grandmama used to say you telling bald-headed lies?
Yeah.
That's what Stephen A doing right now.
Bald-headed lies. That phrase hit different because that's not just calling somebody wrong, that's calling somebody out for knowing they're wrong and saying it anyway. That's saying, you know what the truth is and you chose to ignore it for a reason. And that reason is what Godfrey and the Forgotten Kings crew really wanted to talk about. Because think about the math here. A 4,000-seat venue versus Madison Square Garden, which holds over 20,000 people. An intimate White House setup versus one of the loudest arenas in the world going crazy for their team winning a championship for the first time in decades.
Because, 4,000-seat event, right? He did say 4,000 seats, right?
Mm-hmm.
That seems like almost sort of like an intimate setting versus how many seats does the Madison Square Garden hold? Right? Come on, man, get out of there. The energy was palpable. You in New York, bro. There's no way you're gonna tell me that small venue in front of the White House was better.
There is literally no world in which that UFC event was a better atmosphere than MSG during a championship run. None. Zero. The numbers don't support it. The logic doesn't support it. Common sense doesn't support it. So why did Stephen A say it? This is where the conversation went from sports talk to something real. Because Godfrey and the Forgotten Kings crew weren't just clowning Stephen A for a bad take. They were asking a bigger question. Why would a man with Stephen A's platform and history say something this disconnected from reality? And the answer they landed on is simple. Money, access, proximity to power.
Come on. You got to do better than that, man. You got to come correct. But I understand what it is, at the end of the day. You got to get your little biscuits butter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You need to get your little trinkets, you know what I'm saying? Keep the lights on, so I get it. But at the end of the day, be real with yourself, man. You can't look at yourself in the mirror and honestly believe that take. And you trolling at that point.
Biscuits buttered. That's the phrase that explains everything. Stephen A. Smith has built himself into one of the most powerful sports media personalities in the country. He's in rooms that most people never get access to. And when you get into those rooms, certain things are expected of you. Certain takes are more welcome than others. Certain opinions open doors and certain opinions close them. And Godfrey is saying Stephen A. made a calculation. He chose access over honesty. He chose trinkets over truth.
With platforms, we got to call it how we see it. Stephen A., Jay Will, and other individuals who claim to be, voices for the community, for the culture, right? Speak on behalf of black people. You use the people to get to the position where you at today, right? We support, we watch the shows that get the views, that get the ratings, you get the numbers, you get the promotion, you get the check, you get the bag, right? Then you get in these rooms around these folk who view you a certain way. So now you feel like, to not come off as threatening, I have to.
This is a pattern that goes way beyond Stephen A. Smith. This is the story of what happens to a lot of black voices when they get to a certain level of mainstream success. The pressure to assimilate, the pressure to not be too loud, the pressure to not make the room uncomfortable. And somewhere along the way, the voice that spoke for the people starts speaking for the people who write the checks. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Because Godfrey noticed something that a lot of people have been sleeping on. Recently, Stephen A. Smith and Cameron have been spending a lot of time together, popping up on each other's platforms, doing work together, building something publicly. And the question Godfrey is asking is why? Why now? What is the real play here?
But it just goes to show, right? I want y'all to notice something right quick, that as of recently, Stephen A. Smith and Cam, they've been hanging out a lot lately.
Oh, yeah?
Huh?
Look at the
Dr. Umar voice. Don't that sound suspicious? Don't that sound interesting to y'all? Huh?
The dynamic duo. Look at them.
Now you got to ask yourself, with everything that's been going on with Stephen A and his brand.
Think about the timing. Stephen A has been taking heat from the black community. People are calling him out for switching up, for not standing with Kaepernick, for not standing with Kyrie, for this UFC take. His credibility in certain circles is taking real damage. And Cam'ron still has serious street credibility. Cam'ron is still seen as authentic in hip-hop culture. People still ride for Cam. So what does it look like when Stephen A suddenly starts building publicly with Cam'ron?
Aligns himself with Cam'ron to try to gain some of that credibility amongst, you feel me, the fan base within hip-hop, right? Black folk who say he done switched up on us. This is that reason why you see him kicking it with Cam. And Cam trying to, upgrade his portfolio. He trying to get ESPN to cut that check, even though he's built a nice situation over there with him and Cam, right? Yeah. He got his own network.
Both sides have something to gain. Stephen A gets to borrow some of Cam's hip-hop credibility with people who feel like Stephen A sold out. And Cam gets to expand his media presence and potentially get into bigger mainstream deals. It's a business arrangement disguised as a friendship. And Godfrey saw it from a mile away. Everything Godfrey said connects to one central idea that Forgotten Kings TV kept coming back to: the pimping of the culture.
After using the people, using the culture to get where they at.
I think right? We're watching the pimping of the culture firsthand right here, It's one hand washes the other.
That's a heavy statement, but think about what it means. You use black culture, black audience, black support to build your platform. You speak the language, you rep the community, you get the ratings from the people who feel like you're one of them. And then once you're in those rooms, once the checks get big enough, you start making moves that serve the people writing those checks instead of the people who put you there. Stephen A. Smith didn't build his career by being neutral. He built it by being passionate, by being loud, by connecting with black sports fans who felt like he understood what they cared about. And now he's sitting at a White House UFC event where Michelle Obama is being disrespected and calling it a better experience than watching the New York Knicks win a championship. That's not a sports take. That's a signal about where his priorities have shifted. And Godfrey, along with Forgotten Kings TV, is making sure people don't miss that signal.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So, just in case you were wondering, if we selling out over here, hell no. Never will. So if you want, a fair assessment, down the middle, right? For our people, black people to be specific, this is what Forgotten Kings TV is here for. Welcome to the future.
That's the counter. That's the alternative. Keep it real. Call it how you see it. Don't let the biscuits and the trinkets change what you say when the cameras are on. Stephen A. Smith has been one of the loudest voices in sports media for decades. But loud doesn't always mean honest. And big platform doesn't always mean you're still speaking for the people who gave you that platform in the first place. Godfrey called it exactly what it is: a bad take that reveals a bigger problem. A man who got into certain rooms and started making certain calculations. And an audience that is paying very close attention. The Knicks won a championship. New York went crazy. Madison Square Garden was electric. And somehow, Stephen A. Smith found a way to make a 4,000-seat White House event the better memory. That tells you everything you need to know about where his head is right now. Drop in the comments, do you think Stephen A. Smith has sold out, or is this just a bad take that people are reading too much into? Like and subscribe. Forgotten Kings TV said it best. It's a new day, and we're not going anywhere.